Leadership is not a rank to be achieved. Leadership is a responsibility, and it's a responsibility to see those around us rise. There's no CEO on the planet who's responsible for the results. You're responsible for the people, who are responsible for the people, who are responsible for the people, who are responsible for the results. That's a difficult and different skill set. Leadership is a team sport. No one is strong enough or smart enough to lead by themselves. No one. The best leaders do not consider themselves experts, no matter how successful. They consider themselves students. And so yes, the best leaders are constantly learning how to lead. Just like you want your dentist or your doctor to keep learning whatever the newest whiz-bang thing is, well, so too do we want our leaders to continue to learn and improve their education. The giving of time and energy is more powerful than the giving of money. You can't build trust with money. So paying somebody bonuses and giving somebody a big salary, though feels nice, is not earning or building any trust whatsoever. You cannot pay for trust. Turns out, we as individuals are pretty junk at doing most things by ourselves. We're not that smart to solve all the problems by ourselves. We're not that strong to lift all the heavy weights by ourselves. And as social animals, we're just better in groups. That's what we are. And so anybody who thinks they can manage this thing called life or career or work alone, it's a fool's errand. And at the end of the day, one of the most difficult lessons for any of us to have to learn, but it's also the most rewarding, is simply to say the words, I don't know, or I need help, or will you help me? And it turns out we're all surrounded by people who want to help us. They don't, because they don't think we need it. And turns out as soon as we're willing to ask, it's amazing that the army of people who are right by our side. I hear this all the time. It's like, well, I didn't get to choose this team. I inherited this team, so it's not my fault if they do badly. Well, you didn't get to choose your kids. You inherited those. They just showed up. Those are your kids. But you love them anyway. And a team is the same way. It doesn't matter if you picked your own team. You show up and love your team and work tirelessly to see that each of those members of the team can work to their natural best. And it's one of the hard things about being a leader. We have to take the risk to rush towards the danger, to protect our teams and to trust them when others won't. Marines are pretty amazing as a culture. The officer says, you do that, and the Marine just does it. There is no question asked and there's no pushback. This is not the time for, well, I'd like to share my ideas. In high stress, we need command and control. It's actually very, very important. But it's done so with the absolute undying belief that you're making decisions with what you believe is the best interest of the organization, the mission, whatever it is. And I accept that sometimes you'll make mistakes, and that, in the case of combat, could cost people's lives, and I accept that because I believe that you still have the best interests of this organization more than yourself. You're not sending me to harm's way. You're not leveraging the trust and the command for personal gain. You're doing it for the gain of us. What does empathy look and sound like in a corporate environment? It doesn't mean walking around crying. It's not what it means. It means being able to see another person as a human being, not just as a cog in a machine. And people will give their blood, sweat, and tears to serve and give back and follow a leader who they believe sees them as a human being and cares about their well-being as a human being. When we do something for someone with no expectation with anything in return, and they express gratitude, it actually makes us want to be more generous. It's kind of the most amazing thing, that gratitude and generosity sort of feed off of each other. But it also proves this very human dynamic, that together is better, that we need each other. For us to have that feeling and to take care of each other, it's reciprocity. This is the amazing thing about acts of kindness and acts of generosity. When we do one, it feels good. When we receive one, it feels good. And when somebody witnesses one, it also feels good. A sense of humor is the most wonderful thing in the world because it makes you human. But there's even more valuable thing about a sense of humor, which is you cannot laugh and be sad at the same time. You cannot laugh and be scared at the exact same time. And so I think maintaining a sense of humor, especially in difficult times, is essential. Because when we're under huge amounts of stress at work and somebody cracks a good joke, it actually puts us in a great frame of mind to come together and attack that problem, to overcome that challenge. So believe it or not, I actually think a good sense of humor is essential to great leadership. It actually helps us come together and make it through adversity. Business is a community, a company is a tribe, and sometimes things will go exactly your way and sometimes they don't. But there has to be this general feeling that the company cares about me as a human being, that I'm seen, that I'm heard, that I'm understood, that I believe in the vision, that I want to advance the culture, and I believe and I fit the value set and the value set fits me, and I feel like this is part of my personal identity working here. Like when I say the company's name and I say my name, they feel that feels right. Absolutely, teams can change, but it's how we onboard people and it's how people leave as well that matter. You know, asking somebody to leave the team is not inherently bad or wrong, but very often we go about it the wrong way, which is we make a case against them and we usually destroy their self-confidence on the way out. You can't do this, you can't do that, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, get out. But there are ways we can do it where we can ask someone to help them find joy somewhere else with dignity. That, you know, for whatever reason, it's not working here, but we want them to land on their feet somewhere, and we can tell them we think they're great, but we think they'll be happier somewhere else. And we can be generous with the packages that we give them. We can be generous with how we ask them to leave. We can be kind in how we do it. And if you ask them to leave with dignity, everybody sees that. And I've seen it happen where when you ask somebody to leave with dignity, they say thank you, as opposed to something worse when they're angry. And there may be sadness and they say, I understand. And that gets communicated to their teammates because they're going to call their team and say, I'm leaving. And there's going to be a narrative. And so treating people with dignity, whether they work for us or whether we ask them to leave or whether there's change, really matters. No single person is smart enough or strong enough to solve every problem or know every answer. We're just not that good. But in groups, we're remarkable. And any person who's ever achieved any kind of significant success whatsoever, regardless of how you define it, whether it's fulfillment or financial, none of them did it alone. Zero. Whether it's somebody who believed in them, gave them a break, worked as a devil's advocate to help them refine their ideas, whatever it is, we are better as social animals. We're just better as teams. And in weak organizations where trust is not fostered and strong culture is not protected, and that what ends up happening is it's every person for themselves, to the point where people may actually sabotage each other's work for personal advancement. You see it all the time, where people hoard information. They don't want to share what they know with somebody else for fear that they may get ahead. In great organizations, we're constantly sharing every lesson we learned, or, hey, I have a client that I can't help, maybe you can help them, or I learned something that has benefited me, let me show you. And those organizations outperform because people are sharing their ideas and their ideas are better. And so you cannot have that kind of cooperation or innovation unless leaders take responsibility to build trusting teams. We don't trust people to follow rules. We trust people to know when to break them, right? The rules are there for normal operation, and they're perfectly valid. Like, it's good to have sides on the sandbox, otherwise the sand just pours out, right? So the rules give guidance. There's nothing wrong with policies and rules and things like that, but they're guidance. And if something goes wrong, we have to find out why it went wrong, right? So I've told this story a bunch of times, so you can interrupt me if you know it. True story, two true stories about that happened in the Air Force. The Air Force has a very, very simple rule. Do not fly into Iranian airspace. Really easy, right? So there was a KC-135 tanker that was flying in circles, just in a holding pattern in case someone needs gas, in case someone needs them, right? And the crew accidentally drifted into Iranian airspace. It sets off all kinds of alarm bells, right? Not good. Completely different incident, unrelated, different time. Another case, KC-135, just coincidentally, was doing the same thing. They were doing donuts in case somebody needed them, and a fighter jet called bingo, which means they ran out of gas. They need gas. And the crew made some calculations, and they wanted to get to him as quickly as possible because he's out of gas. And the quickest way to get to him was to slice through Iranian airspace. Now, on paper, they both broke the same rule. They should both be punished equally, and they should both be punished, right? The reality is only one of those crews was punished. The ones that were idiots. But the crew that made the decision to cut through the space, knowing full well that it was against the rules, knowing full well that they could get in trouble, and it would accept the punishment if it happened, weren't punished because context matters. So the question is why is somebody late 3 times in a row? Is it because they live far away because they're taking care of their sick mother and they've been struggling to get the bus every day because their bus has been, Is it because they're a single parent and they're struggling to get the kids out in the morning to school? Or is it because they overslept because they're lazy? Or because they went partying the night before and they missed their job and you're a pushover, so whatever, they just take advantage of you? I don't know. Could be one of both, And the question is we don't want them to be late, but we understand that they're struggling. So how do we find a middle ground? You cannot be late anymore, but I understand that you're struggling because you can't get the kids out of school. Let's work together to see how we can make this work. Can we change your shift? What works for you? Let's work together to make this work. Context matters versus, that this is giving you some nonsense excuse or something. You're like, listen, take some accountability, and that's a different conversation, But to immediately dismiss someone because they were late 3 times, to me, that seems like lazy leadership. Lazy leaders rely on the rules.